This is Part 3 Episode 106. Hui Yuhao sensed how warm Wang Qiu's palm was when he held her hand. Their soul powers were instantly, completely connected. Their eyes of destiny shone brightly on their foreheads, and they also released golden lights from their bodies at the same time. Their auras experienced transformations at this moment. The golden dragon, that initially revolved around Wang Qiu now suddenly revolved around both of them. The azure lights that came from Hui Yuhao's body were also released with their bodies as the center. Yes, it was a martial soul fusion. When they held hands, they completed their martial fusion. Hui Yuhao had never thought of giving the fusion between him and Wang Qiu a name. However, he was willing to call it the Haoqiu power now. He didn't know why Wang Qiu had appeared at this moment. However, Wang Qiu's arrival gave him hope in this life and death moment. After months of closed-door cultivation, he also became clearer over many things. The debt he owed Wang Qiu became much deeper right now. He had only once ever asked himself whether Wang Qiu really didn't belong in his heart. The answer was negative. When he learned that Wang Qiu plucked another vine of yearning heartbroken grass to save him at the Icefire Yin-Yang well, a slit opened in his heart for her. When that golden dragon rose into the sky, its roars reverberated, and Wang Qiu's powder blue wavy hair appeared in front of him. Apart from feeling guilty, he was also excited. The fighting intent in his heart was instantly ignited and started to burn unprecedentedly strongly. No matter what, he had to charge out. It was for himself, for Wang Donga and for Wang Qiu. While Hui Yuhao was burning with passion and feelings, Wang Qiu felt very cool. There was a cool aura coming from Hui Yuhao's palm. This cool was extremely comfortable, especially when her hand was being held by his strong yet stable hand. She only felt that her heart had collided with something. The resilience that she had mustered up before coming seemed to be crushed once again. Nemesis. He's my nemesis. Wang Qiu pursed her lips tightly. However, she also blushed slightly, which made her look even more captivating. If she was with him, so what if she was against thousands of enemies? Only the two of them knew their own psychological changes. Even though they hadn't faced many enemies together in the past, they seemed to already have great telepathy with each other, and it wasn't inferior to that between Hui Yuhao and Wang Donga. Their instant teleportation, left leg bones, brought them close to each other. When their martial souls fused, they both surpassed their original cultivations and reached another realm. At this point, Hui Yuhao was holding on to Wang Qiu with his right hand. His left hand was empty. When he pulled Wang Qiu, he lifted his left hand, and the little snow lady silently separated from his back. A white glow started to ripple behind Hui Yuhao's back, too. Another miraculous scene was also playing out behind Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu. After they unleashed their destiny gaze earlier, a projection of a vertical eye had appeared behind each of their backs. These vertical eyes now also turned orange gold. The third elder's thunder god's binding lost its effect in the sky, and he had no choice but to stop, as he was shocked. Nan Shui and Nan Qiu were still stuck within his binding, and he had to deal with them first. He lifted his right hand and pulled them to his side. However, Wu Yu was impatient, and she unleashed her pitch-black spirit of vengeance immediately. She screamed and charged towards Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu in fear. A streak of deep blue light swept past the sky, carrying a sinister chill and the Snow Emperor's pride. It didn't even bother with the fourth elder's netherworld sword and went directly for his head. His netherworld sword only swept past Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu. They didn't even intend to dodge this attack. Did the fourth elder make a mistake? However, Hui Yuhao's Empress's sword, the Snowless Glacier, landed directly on the black fog. The black fog where the fourth elder was, instantly took form and converted into the sword tip of his netherworld sword before it shot upward, blocking Hui Yuhao's Snowless Glacier. However, something weird occurred. As the two swords were about to clash, Hui Yuhao's Empress sword seemed to be guided by an unknown force. Even the fourth elder's lock-on abilities lost their effect at this moment, and Hui Yuhao's Empress sword brushed past his netherworld sword before slashing at his black fog. What? The fourth elder groaned. As he retracted his black fog, he reappeared in mid-air and turned into an ice sculpture. Even though this ice encasement was crushed in the next moment, the fourth elder was still struck by Hu Yuhao's Empress sword, and he staggered back. The entire process happened very quickly, but it was still unbelievable. How was the fourth elder so easily hit in this direct clash against his opponent, even though he was a titled Doluo? In addition, Hu Yuhao's abilities were miles below him. Hu Yuhao revealed a slight smile on his face. He turned and lifted his head. His eye of destiny was flashing purplish gold right now. It was his spiritual shock. Wu Yu suddenly stopped in mid-air. Following this, she screamed pathetically and was even flung backward. While she was supposed to have great immunity against Hu Yuhao's abilities given that she was also a spiritual type soul master, she was completely suppressed, as her spiritual cultivation was inferior to Hu Yuhao's spiritual cultivation. Hu Yuhao's pure spiritual cultivation was already superior to hers. In addition, his soul power had fused with Wang Qiu's soul power, and thus his overall soul power had increased. In terms of cultivation, this combination of Hu Yuhao and Wang Qiu wasn't any weaker than Wu Yu. While Hu Yuhao attacked, Wang Qiu didn't stay idle. When Hu Yuhao unleashed his Empress Palm, she was clearly aware of what he was trying to do. She raised her golden dragon spear, and golden light emanated from her body. These golden lights, which seemed to shine in thick layers, instantly gathered toward her right hand. Hu Yuhao's Empress Palm slashed the ice sculpture. In the next instant, Wang Qiu's spear turned into a streak of golden light that shot straight towards the fourth elder's chest. Wang Qiu was extremely adept in direct confrontations. Her terrifying strength made her publicly recognized as the top dragon warrior in the Continental Elite Youth Soul Master Tournament. Right now, she wasn't just unleashing her own strength. She also had Hu Yuhao's soul power to supplement her. Considering that their soul powers were completely compatible, the fusion of their soul powers didn't just spark a linear increase. That streak of golden light carried both Wang Qiu's strength and Hu Yuhao's spiritual intent, and it reached the fourth elder instantly. The fourth elder groaned, and a dark green light shone from his netherworld sword. A tragic scream sounded, and a human-shaped figure could dimly be seen getting crushed. The light that came from the fourth elder's netherworld sword turned weird. The dark green sword light was refracted, and caused everything to look as if it came from two different worlds. Another purplish netherworld sword silently appeared and maintained a parallel position to the dark green netherworld sword. Wang Qiu's golden dragon spear rapidly shot forward and stabbed just in between the fourth elder's two netherworld swords. However, they combined together at this moment, and a strong layer of silver light was released from between these two swords. There was a clang of metal, and Wang Qiu's spear shook tremendously. It had already stabbed halfway between the two swords, but it didn't manage to stab completely past them. It thus failed to reach the fourth elder's chest. Wang Qiu's expression changed slightly. In the next instant, her spear had already turned into a streak of flowing light and sprang into the air. The fourth elder's 9 soul rings started to flash once each, but in a random order. Yes, this was his netherworld sword's ability to utilize the power of space. The fourth elder coldly stared at them. You wasted a netherworld soul of mine. In that case, I'll use your souls to replace it. His dark green netherworld sword shot forward, while his purplish sword disappeared. However, his second and third soul rings lit up at the same time. He was about to unleash his netherworld force and myriad netherworld blades. Green lights shone extremely brightly, and the fourth elder's netherworld sword instantly grew larger. It changed into countless sharp swords that shot towards Hu Yuhao and Wang Qiu. Suddenly, the entire sky turned green, and space itself seemed as if it were about to be destroyed. This was what a titled Doluo was capable of. Even though the fourth elder's cultivation couldn't compare to Elder Xian, he was still a titled Doluo, and his fighting strength was still extremely terrifying. Hu Yuhao and Wang Qiu turned extremely serious. However, they had no intention of backing down. The two of them stared at each other. Wang Qiu quickly moved in front of Hu Yuhao, and he let go of her hand. Instead, he tightened his hands around the sides of her waist. Wang Qiu's waist was very slender. Hui Yuhao's hands covered 2/3 the circumference of her waist just like that. However, her slender waist was filled with explosive strength. Wang Qiu'er shouted, and 7 soul rings rose from beneath her feet. Yes, 7 soul rings. Wang Qiu'er had managed to advance from 6 rings to 7 rings in just a few months. Apart from the soul power increase she got from the yin-yang love querying valley, her own cultivation had also improved significantly through the tournament earlier. She was now a soul sage, and had improved significantly from before. A gigantic golden dragon head silently appeared in front of her body. She faced her palms together before wrapping them against each other. At this moment, her first, second and third soul rings lit up. Her first, second and third soul skills, golden dragon body, dragon strength, and golden dragon's fist respectively, were unleashed at this moment. Netherworld swords kept on flashing past in the air, but they struck at nothing instead of Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu'er, because of the power of destiny. However, the 4th elder was using a domain attack. After sensing that it wasn't having any effect, he quickly made adjustments. A few netherworld swords still came towards the two of them. Wang Qiu'er suddenly pushed the palms that were facing each other out. A sonorous dragon roar reverberated out, and a ball of golden light blew apart within the patch of green lights. A wild and immense strength was unleashed among the green lights, as if it were an explosive bomb that had just gone off. Boom, boom, boom. A tremendous explosion tore through the air, and streaks of sword light were deflected away and crushed. Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu'er's aura didn't seem to be weaker than the titled Doluo opposite them, even though they were staggering backward. Inside the lightning net, Nan Shueishui and Nan Qiuqiu had already been pulled to the 3rd elder's side. He used 2 chains to trap them, soul tools that could restrain soul power. Those who were soul emperors and below couldn't possibly use their abilities under the restraint of such soul tools. To the 3rd elder, Nan Shueishui was under the influence of the soul eradicating powder, while Nan Qiuqiu was only a soul king. He just needed these 2 soul tools to restrain them. Nan Shueishui didn't resist. She was very focused on the fight that was going on in awe. The 3rd and 4th elders might not know who Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu'er were. However, how could Nan Shueishui not know who the 2 of them were? One of them was the team leader of Shrek, while the other was the linchpin of the Tang sect. Since they could compete in the Continental Youth Soul Master Tournament, that meant that they weren't 20 years old yet. They were around the same age as her daughter, but they had already demonstrated how brilliant they were. Nan Shueishui had always thought that her daughter was already very outstanding. However, Nan Qiuqiu was simply too inferior to Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu'er. The 2 of them were actually able to survive several confrontations against a titled Doluo, and they didn't seem to be on the back foot either. If word of this spread, how proud would they feel? Of course, the 2 of them wouldn't become too excited because of this. The 4th elder was simply putting too much pressure on them. He was a 9-ringed titled Doluo. Hui Yuhao had always known that titled Doluo were extremely strong. In Shrek Academy, he knew many titled Doluo and transcendent Doluo. However, it was 2 different things to know a titled Doluo and to fight a titled Doluo. He felt like the 4th elder's netherworld sword could tear them apart at any time. Hui Yuhao and Wang Qiu'er's fused soul power was quickly declining after they blocked this blow of his. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to resist his attacks for long. Qiu'er. Hui Yuhao called to Wang Qiu'er through his spiritual power. What? Wang Qiu'er seemed to reply him less coldly. I have an idea to get their attention. When I draw their attention later, leave. It's impossible to charge out from here, given our abilities. We only have one opportunity, and I'll help you create it. At most, they'll capture me. When you return to the academy, just think of a way to rescue me. Hui Yuhao's voice was very calm, and was filled with confidence. Wang Qiu'er was silent, and didn't utter a sound. Qiu'er, did you hear me? Hui Yuhao quickly probed. There wasn't much time left. Wang Qiu'er sighed before she replied, all right. They were already suffering against one titled Doluo, and there was still another one for them to face. Hui Yuhao took in a deep breath, then dragged Wang Chua with both his hands to his side. She spun around, and they changed positions. She was now behind Hu Yuhao. However, she didn't just place her hands around his waist like he did to her earlier. When she came behind him, she wrapped her arms around his waist. She stuck close to his body and hugged him without any gaps. Wang Chua's body was warm and cushiony. She wrapped her arms around his waist strongly, but didn't make him feel restrained. He felt indescribably relieved. Wang Chua's surging soul power poured into his body, while she seemed to forget that she was on a battlefield right now. She twisted her head to one side and gently rested it on the back of Hu Yuhao's shoulder, staying close to him. A delicate fragrance spread, and Hu Yuhao was still distracted by Wang Chua, even though he was fighting a life-and-death battle. Chua. Hu Yuhao silently called in his heart. I'm sorry. If I didn't meet Donga, perhaps. However, I've given my life to Donga. Just let me use this last moment to completely sever this yearning in your heart. You must live well in the future, and find someone who dotes on and loves you. Forget me. An unequivocal look flashed across Hu Yuhao's eyes. At this moment, his arms drooped beside his body, and his hair didn't move. His eyes started to fill with silver light, and a look of remembrance slowly spread across them. Donga. Hu Yuhao smiled, and his spiritual intent seemed to rise to another level. Waves started to rage in his spiritual sea. Teacher Electrolux, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I can't pass down your legacy anymore. Ice Empress, Brother Skydream, Snow Lady, I'm sorry. I can't continue to charge towards the path of gods with all of you in the future. When I leave, I'll pass all of you to Chua. Chua isn't less gifted than me. She has the same power of destiny in her body, and she even has the pure bloodline of a dragon god. In the future, it'll be easier for her to reach the level of a god. I'll pass your strengths to her at the last moment. Follow her, and continue to charge towards it. Thank you for all these years. It's because of all of you that I was able to turn from an ordinary boy into what I am today. Hu Yuhao's eyes were filled with guilt. However, he was extremely determined. The Ice Empress turned frantic in his spiritual sea. She tried to muster her origin power to stop him. The Skydream Iceworm was also frantic, and he furiously shouted, "Stupid!" His golden tears also flowed. The little Snow Lady, who was originally on Hu Yuhao's back, was forced back into Hu Yuhao's body with a strong power, and entered his spiritual sea too. The Snow Empress, who looked like a teenager right now, looked slightly sorrowful, and now seemed to be a little more quick-witted too. However, they couldn't do anything right now. Hu Yuhao dominated his own spiritual sea. The Skydream Iceworm was even the one who had personally conferred this authority onto him. Right now, that became their biggest restriction. At this moment, they realized what Hu Yuhao was trying to do. However, they couldn't do anything to stop him. Hu Yuhao's three eyes were extremely bright. Far into the east, the sky gradually turned marble white. However, it couldn't compare to the bright light that shone from his eyes. Streaks of sword lights slashed towards Hu Yuhao. However, they were only able to brush past his body, no matter how strong and concentrated they were. There seemed to be an unprecedentedly strong force on his body that was protecting him and preventing any interruption. A dim projection appeared behind Hu Yuhao before it turned illusory. This projection was himself. It was a dim golden projection of Hu Yuhao. Right now, he seemed very peaceful and quiet. He shut his eyes and sat cross-legged. As he stretched his hands in front of him, his index fingers and thumbs formed a heart shape. A strange golden fog started to rise from this projection. No, it wasn't a fog. It was a flame instead. It was a flame that was burning. Everything around him turned bright, as if dawn had arrived in advance. Every soul engineer from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion was moved without any reason. They were even unable to hold their soul tools anymore, and lowered them. They were all in a daze as they looked at the projection of the burning man. Hu Yuhao seemed very huge and tall right now. There was a proud look in his eyes, as if he were watching all life. His smile was very gentle, but it also seemed to be a scornful smile, directed at his enemies. He was burning. He had ignited his spiritual sea. Was he crazy? Could he actually do something like this? Whether it was the third elder, the fourth elder or Wu Yu, who had just recovered from the blow she had sustained from Hu Yuhao's spiritual shock, they were all astonished as they looked at Hu Yuhao. Soul masters might choose to ignite their own soul power in the face of a crisis to generate extremely strong offensive strength. However, it was very difficult to stop such an ignition after it had started. Even if it was stopped, the soul master's cultivation would still be greatly affected, and he might sustain a permanent injury. If it couldn't be stopped, his soul power would burn until there was nothing left and he would die. As a result, soul masters rarely chose to ignite their soul power, even in the face of a crisis. As for igniting one's spiritual power and spiritual sea, however, it was something that was unknown and unheard of. Spiritual power and spirits were magical existences, no matter whether it was in the world of soul masters or soul engineers. No one could clearly explain what they were. Even for a spiritual type soul master, his understanding of spiritual power was very limited if his cultivation wasn't high enough. While the ignition of one's soul power couldn't usually be controlled, a person's spirit would still remain even if he was dead. However, igniting one's spiritual power was definitely uncontrollable, and both the body and spirit of a person would be completely destroyed. Is this guy crazy? Did we even say we were going to kill him? Wu Yu didn't know that Hu Yuhao had made such an unhesitant and determined decision mainly for two reasons. First, he felt that he owed Wang Qiu'er too much. She was here to rescue him in this time of crisis, and he felt that he was obligated to ensure that she was safe. In order to send Wang Qiu'er away safely, he needed sufficient strength. Secondly, he felt that Wu Yu was too threatening. Hu Yuhao was reminded of how Feng Ling was turned into a madam, and he was afraid to end up like him. He would rather his body and spirit be destroyed than to become a second Feng Ling. That was also the more important reason why he was willing to die. He stepped out with his left leg, and his bright eyes turned gentler. A golden projection silently appeared behind him. Compared to Wang Qiu'er, this projection seemed a little more slender, and had straight hair. Wasn't this Wang Dong'er? She quietly flew forward and adopted a hugging posture, before she stuck close and fused with Hu Yuhao's body. During this process, she also flew past Wang Qiu'er's body. Wang Qiu'er shuddered, and a look of sadness flashed across her beautiful eyes. Even at this life and death moment, he still only has her in his heart. This projection of Wang Dong'er fused with Hu Yuhao, and his gaze turned even gentler. At this moment, to him, his enemies didn't seem to exist anymore. There was only a look of remembrance in his eyes. Remembrance was a magical thing. Hu Yuhao unleashed his fist of remembrance, which contained a surging feeling of remembrance. A fist with an indescribable color, but which yet seemed to shine with a special glow, was formed. Hu Yuhao didn't seem to have a target, and he just unleashed his fist into the air. However, all three of the evil soul masters, which comprised two titled Doluo and one soul Doluo, felt as if Hu Yuhao's fist was unleashed towards them. An indescribable emotion instantly spread in their hearts. The fourth elder was the first to bear the brunt of Hu Yuhao's attack, as he was standing directly opposite Hu Yuhao. He straightened his netherworld sword, and his seventh soul ring shone. His body instantly turned into a streak of black light, and he fused with his sword. Following this, another tragic scream sounded. Among the 9 netherworld souls in the fourth elder's netherworld sword, the second soul was crushed, and the earlier purplish sword projection surfaced again. Space shook like the strings of a violin, and the fourth elder's martial soul true body, which was this purplish netherworld sword, surged up. However, it was forced back into the original form of the fourth elder's sword and disappeared. In addition, the soul engineers from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion in the air, who had already retreated quite some distance, also seemed to be infected by something. They started to tear up, and they couldn't control their emotions. They even couldn't control themselves in the air, and their soul tools started to fall from their hands. At this point, metal was raining down inside the city. At this moment, all of these soul engineers were all remembering their loved ones, and they lost their fighting spirit. This was the highest level of profundity of the Fist of Remembrance. There wasn't any outright force, but it influenced, controlled and even destroyed one's emotions. The stronger one's spiritual power was, the greater the influence on their emotions. This was especially applicable for those who shared a similar type of remembrance with Hui Yuhao. The third elder had already raised his right arm, and was prepared to use a strong soul tool to destroy Hui Yuhao. However, it stopped in the air. He turned his gaze towards Nan Shui, who was right beside him. Remembrance was a magical thing. Right now, the person he yearned for the most was beside him. A blissful smile unwittingly appeared on his face. At this moment, he had already completely forgotten what he was doing here, and that he was supposed to attack Hui Yuhao. Wu Yu was dealt a larger blow than the third elder. She and Wu Yun were twin sisters, and they suffered from similar circumstances. When Wu Yun's emotions changed, she would experience similar emotional changes, too. After she saw what Hui Yuhao presented to her through his imitation, her emotions were fluctuating even worse than her elder sister. Right now, all types of complex emotions erupted in her head. Wu Yun had been able to instinctively counterattack and defend herself. However, Wu Yu was completely motionless in the air, and in a daze as she stared at Hui Yuhao. All sorts of emotions were surging and changing continuously in her eyes. Compared to her, the fourth elder was under less influence. However, he was directly in front of Hui Yuhao's Fist of Remembrance. This fist was a perfect combination of spiritual and soul power, and it was infused with the feeling of remembrance. When it was unleashed, it was completely imprinted onto the fourth elder's martial soul true body. The sword intent of his purple sword was suppressed, and his sword was flung back amidst a piercing buzzing sound. He flew back several hundred meters before he managed to stabilize himself. Hui Yuhao didn't stop. When he unleashed his Fist of Remembrance, he had already forgotten everything about the outside world. The identical projection above him started to burn more brightly. It was the origin power in his spiritual sea that was burning. Otherwise, how could he possibly unleash such strong emotions and infect the two titled Doluo until they weren't able to hold their ground anymore? Hui Yuhao exerted force with his left foot, and he was lifted higher again. He lifted his right hand and pointed his index and middle fingers upward. A lustrous, bright glow instantly shot into the sky. A huge beam of sword light around 100 meters long and several dozen meters wide shot into the sky. This bright sword light seemed to pierce the sky. Wherever it passed, space distorted and would gently shake. Hui Yuhao's expression also started to change. The gentle look in his eyes turned into pain, and he pursed his lips tightly. His eyes had already turned wet, and his emotions seemed to completely enter another world. Remembrance, it started from thinking before it escalated to missing. Wang Donger's face flashed in Hui Yuhao's eyes. He suddenly felt that he was very blissful. Even if he had to die, he was able to die during his remembrance of Wang Donger. He was satisfied. This was probably the best result, considering the situation he was in. The majestic sword light descended from the sky. One's swordplay could only reach the peak if he handled his relationships well. This was Hui Yuhao's sword of longing, a sword which would never be forgotten. There was a target for this sword. Wu Yu. If not for the fact that Wu Yu had controlled Feng Ling, Hui Yuhao's almost perfect plan wouldn't have experienced such a huge problem. More importantly, Wu Yu's emotions were completely controlled by his Fist of Remembrance right now. This was his best breakthrough point. She was affected worse than the rest, because she was a spiritual type soul master. Her spirit of vengeance relied on boundless hatred. However, she was forced to experience the feeling of remembrance by Hui Yuhao at this moment. How could she avoid his sword of longing now, after being affected by his Fist of Remembrance earlier? Her spirit of vengeance sensed a huge crisis, and unleashed itself from her body to protect her. Wu Yu seemed to be getting a slow grip on her emotions, but it was all too late. Hui Yuhao's fusion with Wang Chioa, and his ignition of his spiritual sea had raised his strength to a standard above Wu Yu. The three ultimate Haodong skills had finally revealed the terrifying strength that they were meant to possess. Why didn't Hui Yuhao use the abilities that the Snow Empress, the Ice Empress and the Sky Dream Iceworm had conferred on him. It was because he had to continue to be connected to them if he used their abilities. If that happened, they wouldn't be able to separate from him after his death and fuse with Wang Chua. This was why Hui Yuhao could only use the 3 skills that he had invented, the 3 ultimate Haodong skills. Hui Yuhao's sword of longing immediately tore her avenging spirit to pieces. Wherever this sword light passed, spots of bright light were left behind in the air. It was as if tears of remembrance had been scattered in the air. This shiny sword light flashed past Hui Yu's body before disappearing, and her body stiffened in the air. She drifted several meters back before stopping. The bloodshot look in her eyes faded away, and her gaze started to become similar to Hui Yuhao's. She was ultimately not as strong as her sister. Against Hui Yuhao's complete version of the 3 ultimate Haodong skills, she didn't manage to survive until his last skill. She was already sucked into the whirlpool of remembrance by the sword of longing. In the next instant, her body disintegrated, and was crushed before she turned into a pile of dust. She was reunited with her elder sister in another world. That majestic sword seemed to have slashed the sky apart. At this instant, Ma Xiaodao looked at the sky in the direction of Sunrise City, as if she had a premonition. That's not good. There's a fight in Sunrise City. It could be a fight involving titled Doluor, considering how strong the spiritual undulations are. Quick, let's return. Ma Xiaodao was frantic. After giving out her order, she immediately leapt up, and her wings fluttered forcefully as she quickly proceeded back toward Sunrise City. Earlier, she kept on having bouts of uneasiness, as if she felt that something was going to happen. However, she kept on telling herself that it was probably because Hui Yuhao was about to be caught. She had also been thinking of a plan of action if Hui Yuhao was caught. Without the 3rd and 4th elders, it was possible for Hui Yuhao and the others to kill the Zhong brothers if they coordinated well. It was just that the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion was nearby, and their leader, who was a Class 9 Soul Engineer, was very difficult to deal with. However, Ma Xiaodao suddenly felt that something wasn't right when the sword of longing swept across the sky. The reason why she was feeling uneasy wasn't because it originated from a distance, but because it came from behind her. Don't tell me that little brother didn't leave Sunrise City, and is still inside. This video will end here.